Hey y'all, welcome to Hillbilly Garage. Well, you can see scattered out about across the table here, we got a few fairly new parts. They're brand new. And these are actually for Stroker's motor. And we have the block machine, board, decked, but I still need the clearance for the rotating assembly. So that's what we're working on tonight. So we can get that back over to the machine shop and get it hot tanked so that we can put it together. But I wanted to bring y'all in as we work on this first phase. And you can see here that we've unpacked uh, most of our, well, all of our piston parts and stuff. And you want to really take your time with this, okay? Because, and believe you me, I'm taking my time with it because even though it's fairly simple concept, you know, we want to make sure that I've got everything laid out. I want to set myself up with a system and do everything in a meticulous way so that I don't make a silly mistake and have to go back. Now, luckily, these use C clips or snap rings to hold the pins in the bushings. So if I were to mess up, I can take it apart. Now, if you're using circlips that you twist in, now those are a real pain in the butt. I'm telling you just from looking at it because I've actually never done one. But anyway, here's the thing. Now, first of all, the pistons that we have, see, they only have one set of reliefs, so we're going to make sure that we orient our piston or valve reliefs towards the intake manifold. Okay. So, and they're not marked fronts either. So, but anyway, as we're looking at the engine, or as I'm looking at it from my side, I want to have these valve reliefs up towards the intake manifold for the odd bank. The way y'all are seeing these over here, you'll have the valve reliefs towards the intake manifold toward on the even bank. All right. Now that's not problematic in itself, but what I have also done is I've oriented the connecting rods here in a way to help me, and I've marked them. This is number one, front. And the reason that it's front is because on the odd bank, the chamfers in where your rod bearings go faces to the left. Well, they all actually face to the left. But if I'm sitting here looking down at the block, number one is the forward most. And when it goes into the crankshaft, this left side will be towards the cheek of the rod journal where one and two ride. So I'm going to want my chamfer to be towards the cheek, and then you'll notice on this side it's flat. There's hardly any chamfer in there at all. Now number two, you can see I got it marked to the front, and it is going to sit like this around the crankshaft. You got the chamfer to the cheek there, and then the chamfer to the cheek there. Okay. Now, like I said, I'm going to put this piston on this rod like this, reliefs to the top, chamfer to the left, and it also puts my tangs, when they're down there, they'll be on the pan rail side. All right. And in the same respect, when I put this one, from what y'all are seeing, reliefs up, chamfer to the left, this one will sit in the motor like this, because this will be against this side of the cheek on the crankshaft. And then they will ride like this. Okay. But anyway.
Yeah, so what do you mean? This is the crank right here. So the cheek, or what are you referring to? Like this right here? Like the end of the journal?
This journal you can see pretty good. This is where two of the connecting rods would go, and this is what you would call a cheek because of this area, right? And there's a little radius right there. I'm not really ready to uncover this just yet. I mean, it's sterile and clean. But anyway, there's a little radius on this side and a little radius on that side.
So the flat parts are together.
So the flat parts are in the middle together.
Gotcha.
The chamfers are opposite towards these lips, these radiuses on the crankshaft. So, like I said, in this case where we got floating pins, if we were to mess up, we could take it back apart, switch it around. But if you are heating them and for press pins, once you put it together, you're in a bad spot if you don't get it right. So that's why I say it's just better to really take your time, lay out some marks, get your brain all wrapped around it. That's the way I always have to do. Okay, so anyway, let's move on. I have went ahead and I put one snap ring in to the pistons, and I saved this last one. All right, we are taking them out. First thing we want to do is we want to wipe off, any packing oil or hopefully there's not dust or whatever. But we want to make sure that our wrist pin is clean and make sure that our little journal A's are clean. And then we want to make sure that our pin fits smoothly and floats the way that we want it to. All right, and that's drive lubrication, but that moves very smoothly. Actually, I'm sorry, this is the one, wasn't it? Yes. Okay, so it floats through really nice. Now, what I want to do is I need to put one of my snap rings in. And this doesn't make any difference, but like I said, I like to set myself up to do it the same for each one. And the way I started is I put my first clip in the right side of the piston. All of them, both sides, okay? And then what I found, because you do have to be very careful, because if you miss the groove and go in and lose track of your clip, then you could mar up that inside. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the pin in my finger as kind of my backstop, my safety. And you do want to get you a good set of snap ring pliers. These are pretty sturdy. I got them at AutoZone. They're Duralast, but they're pretty stout. I like them. They're pretty good. I had another set and they were kind of weak, and these clips are really strong. And when I went to squeeze it, it twisted the jaws, so I had to back out. So you guys can see that groove right there. This is where we're headed with our snap ring. All right. So I'm using the pin in my finger as a backstop so I can't, help keep it from getting away from me. Gently squeeze. Just go down as far as that groove. Slide the top of your ring up in there. Relax your pliers. All right. And that way we haven't caused any problems in there. Pin's moving good. We're in good shape. All right. Now we're organized.
Okay.
All right. We'll lube up the bushing for my wrist pin. Lube up my wrist pin. And lube up the ears in my pistol. Okay. I got one to the front chamfer to the left, make sure my reliefs are going to be in the proper position. I'm going to guide my pin in through my bushing. Till she's all the way in. Now my pin is still in there, so that's going to help give me my backstop, keep me from overgoing. And there she went. She seated. Moves nice and smooth. So there we go. Number one, reliefs to the top, chamfer to the left. One successfully put together. All right, we'll be back. All right, y'all. I'm getting ready to put this last one together. And since my table is crowded over there, I've been turning my engine around to try to keep my brain straight. So I bring my piston over here, put my reliefs to the top, grab my rod, ignores my paint because I need my chamfer to the left. And just get everything lubed up good. My reliefs to the top, chamfer to the left. Let me finish this. All right, last one going together. Just gently guide the pins in, wiggle the rod just a little bit until she starts to slide. Push her home. Get the C-clip in as deep as you can get it, because it's a little bit tighter on this side. And then snap her down in. And there we have it. So now we got the even bank done. Bring these back over. And I should be able to pick them up. Have my reliefs towards the intake manifold. Chamfer to the cheek. Chamfer to the cheek. They're going to go side by side. All right, so there we go. Now that we've got those together, now we're going to get ready to put our crankshaft in and get set up to mark off for some clearancing. I'll be right back. All right, y'all, just wanted to check in quick. I wanted to share something with you. This is one of Brian Salter's teachings from Salter Racing Engines, and it was in a video that he actually just put out a few days ago. But when we prep the block, I always go through and I take a file and I break all these edges, make sure that there's no burrs in the journals. But what Brian also teaches is to make sure that you have no burrs on the end of your bearings where they're processed. And I actually do feel a very small one here. Now, these are good bearings, king bearings. I've used them a lot. Normally, but I mean, it's a process to make these things. and these kind of things happen. So you just very gently go right over this backside edge, just a few strokes to make sure that there's no burr right there. All right, and then you just kind of get in behind this tang just a little bit and hit that real quick. Flip it over. Just make sure that the end is nice and clean. No burr, doesn't take a lot of effort. Wipe it down, and you know, this block still has to go and be hot tanked and everything. So filing right here, this is not hurting anything. I'll clean these bearings before they go back in, but I just want to make sure that it'll go down and that you can actually push it back and forth past center without it dragging. All right. Now, I'm not going to put the thrust bearing in just now because we're just doing some clearance here, but we'll be right back.
Okay.
All right, y'all. I went ahead and dropped the bearings in. And what I'm doing right now is I am putting wow, that was completely by accident, people. I did not measure that. You may be asking, what in the world is he doing? Well, I'm actually going to, well, I don't necessarily have to do it this way to mark them, but when I come back and do my checks to make sure I've got enough clearance after I grind on it, I'll do this again. And I learned this from Joe Zoppler. He was the lead mechanic from Garage Squad. And what he says is, if you clearance it without rod bearings in the hopefully doesn't happen circumstance of you spin a rod bearing or something, then you won't have rods clanging around and beating on your pan rail when there's excess slop in the rod if the rod bearing is missing. So, and it's only going to be, you know, a few more thousandths, but seems to me to be a worthwhile way of checking it or doing it. Of course, we hope that we don't ever have, you know, spun rod bearings or anything like that, but you know, if we're prepared for it, then you know it won't happen, right? So that's what we're going to do. So we will actually put the rods on here without bearings. And that way we will know what kind of clearance we got. But all right, we'll be right back.
Okay.
All right, y'all. I have carefully put all of my pistons and connecting rods in without rings and without bearings. I taped up the journals so that I can get in here and work. And this is what we're looking for. If you come around here, if you look right down in there. All right.
Hold on. Okay.
Look straight down in here. You can see that without a bearing, right there, that would make contact. Okay, so we're going to have to open that up a little bit. And
because this is a stroker motor?
Yes, because the crankshaft has more stroke, it brings the connecting rod down closer, or down and out further and closer than it did with the shorter stroke. That was a 3.48 inch, and this is a 3.75 inch. Alrighty. You can see this zip tie is about 50 thousandths. So if we make sure that this zip tie fits very loosely between the bolt head and the block, then we'll know we have 50 thousandths, or actually 60 thousandths would be better. And I'll probably add me a little piece of tape to that. But anyway, that's what we're going to do. We're going to rotate the crankshaft, find all the places where the bolts, see, and here's the difference. Relaxed, it looks like it's got plenty of clearance, but if you check it as if maybe you had spun a rod bearing or something, then they are right in there. Okay, see how it's touching?
Yeah.
So we actually have no clearance if, in the unlikely event, we have a bearing issue. So that's why we're going to clearance it that way. So that way when there is a bearing in there, if we clearance it to 50 thousandths without, with the bearing, we'll have at least 60 thousandths. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go through and mark all the places where it's close. And then we're going to pull everything back out. And we'll clearance it a little bit. And then we will put it all back together and check it. So when we get to that point, we will bring y'all back. So we'll see you in a bit.
Go right here.
All right, y'all. I got my areas marked up on the insides of the block to where I need to double check. And then now I am taking a look in the cam tunnel because I need to see if I'm going to have any interference issues back in here, you know, the rods and camshaft. And what you might be able to see there, hopefully I can get this in here and still be able to see it with the camera, but you can see now there are no cam bearings. I got my straight edge is touching the corners of those crank rods, and you can see that I can rock my straight edge between the journals. So that means that we have a little bit of material here down in the zone where the camshaft is going to live. So we're going to have to adjust that just a little bit. Center line there. And I don't want to have to remove any more than I have to. And that's mostly because this is a balanced assembly. What I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to weigh the I'm sorry. I'm trying to think and talk at the same time. I'm going to have to weigh for a start and a finish and try to make sure that I take off the same amount from all of them, not to cause any balancing issues. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to draw me a straight line on the end so I know what angle that I need to be. It's not very much, it's just a little bit of material. So we got to make sure that we're not going to have problems with the ends of the rods smacking on cam lobes. And what I'll do is I'll use the first two as my template and then work on the rest of them, because I can take them. But anyway, I can look down the tunnel and I can see that I got about the same amount of protrusion of the corners of my connecting rods down into the cam tunnel, and it's not much. It's very, very little. But you know, with heat expansion and things and rotating things, moving around, we want to make sure that we don't have any potential for rods touching cam lobes, because that would be catastrophic, and we certainly don't want any of that. So, yep, I got about the same amount on each one. It's not very much. So, we're going to start pulling this apart, and we'll be back. All right, y'all. I don't want to take off any more than I have to, but you can see better here. So you can see this mark that I made right here. That was the center of the bolt. I know there's paint in it, but the indent from the casting is actually over here. This center of the bolt was actually in the lip on this side of the casting indentation. So I have to move this over, and then the red paint up here is how much I needed to get the clearance that I need. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to be rock steady here. Hold this straight up and down, because I don't want to take away any more than I absolutely have to. Make sure I don't leave any little lips like right here. Because you got to remember, all that's happening is the edge of the head of that bolt needs to pass through there. So I just need to take what was the original casting, and see here, you can see on this one, the center is almost center in here. So I only have to move this one over just a little bit.
You can see better on this side because of the sun.
Yeah. So that's all I want to do is I want to just move this hole back. The original casting hole, I want to move it back so that it will have the room, the clearance that I need for that rod bolt to pass through there.
What did the pistons weigh when?
Weighed 1,012 grams. All right, y'all. I went ahead and weighed each piston ahead of time, so I'll know what to compare it to after. But I'm going ahead and I'm gonna reweigh it with my bag, because what I've done is I've wrapped it in a Ziploc bag, sealed it up with black tape, and get me a measurement. 1,025 grams. I'm gonna come over here. So I got the plastic bag and I got gravity helping me to make sure that there's no grindings that goes up here. And I'm going to grind a gram off of this. You might say, well, how do you know what a gram is? Well, that's what scales are for. But what I've also discovered is when a couple of the traces of the threads is showing, it puts me in the right ballpark. Come back over and weigh it again. 1024. It was 1025. And that's what we've gotten pretty much on all of them. So, ow, and I keep touching the hot end. Anyway, so now that we've got some clearance on there and we clearanced on the block, and I shot it all down with air, all completely, try to blow away as much millings and as grit as I can, and then I rinsed it with brake clean, wiped it with paper towel, blew it off with air again, try to make sure that I keep, get rid of as much grit especially where the bearing journals are, because I got those good and clean. And then we're going to lay this back in here and we're going to check our clearances. We'll be right back. All right, y'all. Took 2 rounds, but as you can see, without a bearing, remember we measured this wire tie, it was about 50 thousandths. So we have 50 thousandths clearance without the bearing, then we are in good shape with the bearings. You can see. This is what we're after.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Make
I got
sure
that.
that-
Yeah.
And then I just gotta run from the front to the back. Pull up all my slack. Make sure I got it. Yep. Can't remember how to do that one.
Yeah, you did that one.
Alrighty, y'all. So there we go. We have successfully clearanced this block for this crank and rods, so that we know we got plenty of clearance to allow for heat and expansion, and so we won't have any interference problems. Alrighty, so we will get moving on to the next one, bitch. Alrighty, y'all. We've got this block clearanced up. Plenty of room for rotating assembly to move freely and allow for a little bit of heat expansion. So next thing is I gotta take all this back apart. I gotta take the block to the machine shop, get it hot tanked, and then it'll be ready to start the reassembly. And we'll bring you all back in for the next one on that. We'll see y'all. Bye.